From Transport Topics in Washington, D.C., this is RoadSigns. And now here's your host, Michael Fries.
Thank you for listening to RoadSigns, the podcast series from Transport Topics that explores the trends and technologies that are shaping the future of trucking. As part of our special report on workforce development in the trucking industry, we'll spend these next episodes speaking with industry professionals about the people, issues, and trends that define its workforce. In this episode, we're delving into the search for technicians. What are training facilities doing to bring new technicians into the workforce? And what are fleets doing to help prepare and attract that talent to join the changing workforce environment? We'll set out to answer those questions in this episode. To learn more about the technician landscape, we'll speak with Ken Boyer, Dean of the Auto Diesel Institute and Diesel Services Program Director at Baker College in Owasso, Michigan. But first, we're going to learn more about this from the fleet side with our first guest, Ralph Romero, Vice President of Talent Management at US Xpress. Welcome to the show, Ralph.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
One of the things I would like to do in our special series is I just want you to explain the role that you have as Vice President of Talent Management with US Xpress. What does that entail and what's the main objective?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, as Vice President of Talent Management at US Xpress, and again, I'll give real quick background on US Xpress for those that may not be familiar with us, but we're one of the nation's largest asset-based trucking companies, including being a top 10 provider for dedicated contract services. But whether you're asking me or you're asking another leader in our organization, our most important asset isn't necessarily our tractors and trailers. And again, you may be thinking, oh, that's because Ralph's the VP of Talent Management. He's saying this, but I wholeheartedly believe it's our people. It is the collective brain power that the solutions we're able to provide to our customers and to our drivers help us deliver some unique solutions. Again, I just get the privilege of leading the talent management organization within US Xpress, and that includes employee development, organizational development, people analytics, our HR business partner team, as well as talent acquisition.
In your position and acquiring talent, what does it take to be a diesel technician for a fleet, more specifically US Xpress?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. And I would say, right, US Xpress didn't necessarily hire me because I'm a maintenance professional or I'm a driver professional, but it was more from the perspective of how do you build a culture and partner with the subject matter experts? And I say that because it's important to note that my team in trying to attract the right talent for our organization, there's a lot of collaboration that we have with our business units. And in this case, that we're talking technicians with our maintenance department. We have a fantastic relationship with them, and we work closely with them to understand the nuances to the job. And there are a lot, right? There are different positions within the organization. If you're just talking technicians, right, we have 3-4 different unique positions for technicians, and unique for different areas within the United States, depending on the type of equipment that's running through those lanes in those areas. So, those things through job analysis and through some other techniques that we use with partnering with maintenance, we're able to identify what those critical knowledge, skills, and abilities that are necessary for a Tech 1 or Tech 2 or Tech 3 or a lead tech within our shops. And I think going through that process with the business has provided some pretty good output, whether that's those coming in that are maybe new to the industry or those that have experience that also help us balance out our talent mix.
Let's explore that balance into a little more detail. What are some of the issues within that in finding the right diesel tech? Are there some underlying issues that you find in all cases, or is it just kind of a unique type of challenge?
So if you were talking to the maintenance department, which I do frequently, they're going to say that they're unique. And you're going to think unique because, right, the way they spec our equipment is going to be unique to what US Xpress deems as appropriate for the fleet and the lanes that we're running. So when you think about the way we're speccing the equipment, that's also going to determine how we're also going to service the equipment, the intervals, and the type of techniques that they're going to use on that particular equipment. So while we may be able to pull or attract talent maybe from other carriers, maybe they spec their equipment a little bit differently. So still there's probably some gaps that need to be closed by our lead techs. And if we're acquiring, let's say, directly from tech schools, right? There are certain things that they work on based off of their curriculum. And there are certain tech schools that we try to partner with to get their talent as aligned as possible with kind of our needs and our equipment needs. That does help close that gap a little bit. One of those programs is our internship program that we have with technicians. I want to say that's probably been over the last 12 to 18 months a great addition to our talent mix for the shop. And again, I think that goes largely in part of, right, us partnering with maintenance, them having the dialogue, us kind of helping them build the platform necessary for these interns to come on. I would say 100% of the interns that we've had converted, they've actually converted to full-time employees. So with a retention rate of about 91%. And in terms of our internship program, it's typically about 3 months. But we are flexible at times. We've extended those internships in certain situations. And I think what we've heard out of our internships is that they really get some true hands-on experience, right? It's not necessarily I'm just shadowing or they have me on a computer, right? They can do those things at the tech school. It's about how do I truly get hands-on experience? And of course, that's with one of our lead technicians that's kind of walking them through it step by step, which I think is what has lended to the interns wanting to convert to full-time employees with US Xpress. And it's been great. It's been great for the intern. It's been great for the business.
91% retention rate. That's pretty high and pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
TransForce Group is your one-stop shop for carrier solutions. From driver development to carrier business needs, we are the number one choice to keep trucking firms on a path to growth. We offer innovative solutions in compliance and safety, digital recruiting, employment solutions such as driver and mechanic placement, and driver education and training. TransForce Group is here to help. Visit transforcegroup.com to get on the road to success today.
One of the things I wanted to talk about, I kind of like to go into detail in working with other training facilities and other schools when it comes to bringing about the newest line of diesel technicians. Can you tell me a little bit about the mutual lines of communication? I'm realizing that you're probably talking to the schools a lot and I guess helping them craft the next line of new techs. I mean, what are those conversations like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I would go out as far as US Xpress only knows what the tech schools are doing based off of the relationship that we have with them. So we only know what we know. And then the tech schools only know our expectations based off of how much time that they spend with us. So they only know what they know. So for us to close the gap, which is the mutual relationship, right? It's in their best interest to place candidates, right? It's good for their recruiting. And then it's in our best interest to make sure that what they are developing in-house is going to fit us because that helps our talent pipeline. So those lines of communication absolutely have to be open. And I would say the locations that we have the best relationships are the ones that we see the tech schools coming on site to US Xpress. And then you also see our personnel going on site to the tech schools. And it's not just, hey, we're showing up to a tech career fair, right? If you're just showing up to a tech career fair and that's the first time that they've heard about your organization, you're too late, right? If you're not in the classroom, if you're not providing value to the students in a different way other than just showing up to a career fair, you're already too late to the game, especially when you talk about tech recruiting.
Yeah, I guess your role is more of in a marketing span as well, getting new talent in.
No, I would say it is. And I would say it's another good point because when people typically think of HR, which is what talent management falls under the umbrella, most of the time people think of administrative. You've got people that are going out and applying to a website. People are looking at resumes and then they're moving resumes to the hiring manager. Why that it's still part of the process. There's a lot more to talent acquisition from a marketing perspective to make sure that people understand the culture, understand the type of roles that we're looking for in the organization. Why would you want to come work for us? And what are we looking for specifically? So there's a lot of other technology and other things that we have to leverage beyond just tech schools, which are definitely a big piece of it, but a lot of other partners to help us make sure that we can maintain our pipeline, right? So demand is definitely strong within our market. So there's no question that we need qualified technicians to keep our drivers moving.
Kind of going into that next step of training school and then going into the job market. I understand that US Xpress has some incentive programs. You elaborate on that and just sort of the philosophy on attracting new talent in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I would say some of them that we're doing and would say pretty unique. Again, you're going to hear me continue to say about 12 to 18 months, which is where we've really tried to make a strong change in our talent management practices. And again, tech's definitely being a big piece of it is, let's say OEM. So original equipment manufacturer curriculum. So new employees coming on or our current employees get an opportunity to continue their education and sharpening their skills kind of within their craft that they're in. And again, with partnering with maintenance, we've been able to build a curriculum and provide employees. It's not mandatory, they can opt in, but we are providing those employees at least an hour every week to go be able to consume this type of curriculum, because we know the more that they get educated, right, the further they can move up. So you started with us as a Tech 1. We're going to give you training, assuming you have the aspirations to do it, to move into a Tech 2. Same thing for Tech 2 to Tech 3. But we're not just telling you to do it, right, and saying do it on your own time. We're also making time available while you're at work. Why that's important, and not necessarily just for sharpening their skills, but there's also some incentive behind that quarter by quarter. And so far this year in 2020, we've had about 200 employees that have engaged in the OEM curriculum, which is accounted for about 1,200 hours. Another component, which I won't go into, but we also sponsor ASE, so Automotive Service Excellence certifications, as well, certain requirements behind that as well. But we also, we pay for that. We want people to continue to grow and expand, because we know if they're happy and they're growing, they're going to stay with us, right? But they're also going to help us, again, get our equipment to spec, get our drivers back on the road quicker. So then, of course, we can deliver for our customers.
It just sounds like a win-win situation when it comes down to it. New technicians are trying to get into the market, and at the same time, the market is hungry for that type of labor. So the question I guess I'm asking is, in providing those incentives, do you think that's the way to go going forward when it comes to hiring new talent? Will you need to bring in more incentives, or do you see something different on the horizon?
So it's an interesting question, and it's hard to say that just incentive or sign-on bonuses or boot allowances or I'm going to give you a toolbox or I'm going to give you X amount of tools is just it, right? I think that is a component of it, but I think if you leave it just to incentives, that's good for maybe getting some people in the door, right? Converting them from another carrier to you. But I think that's short term. I don't think that's what's going to keep your employees long term. And within a market that finding technicians, qualified technicians is very, very difficult. It's not just about getting them in the door, but it's what are you going to do with them when they're in the door, right? How do you care for them as an employee? How do you make sure that they feel valued? And again, that's where I think some of this OEM curriculum, I think some of the sponsored ASE Excellence Awards, even how we even approach performance management with this group, that we do 2 cycles a year to make sure that they're getting feedback constantly, so they know where they can continue to improve. And it's not just, hey, you need to go improve in this. It's here's an opportunity for you to improve, but we also have the mechanisms for you to be able to do that here. So if you're interested in doing it, you don't have to go search for it. We have it here for you, and we're earmarking X amount of work hours for you to be able to do it should you be interested in going down that route. So I think holistically, that is a component, is incentive to help some get in the door. But I think there's got to be a lot more to the talent strategy than that.
Yeah, of course, with retention efforts, you definitely want to keep that good talent that you recruited in. So I mean, I guess that would be half the equation. I think that would be a good place to leave things, Ralph. I really enjoyed you being on the show. Thank you very much for your knowledge.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it, and again, we appreciate the time, and we look forward to further discussions in the future.
Need mechanics? TransForce Group is here to help, from diesel mechanics to trailer and tire mechanics and more. We are responsive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nationwide. Our recruiters have more than 50 years of experience in the industry and know exactly how to ask the right questions and fill your mechanic needs. Visit transforcegroup.com/employment solutions to learn more.
I'm excited to welcome Ken Boyer, Dean of Auto Diesel Institute and Diesel Service Program Director at Baker College in Owasso, Michigan. Welcome to the program, Ken.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you on. Baker College is the only college in Michigan to have a master accreditation for diesel service. And it's one of the reasons why we wanted you on the program. I just want to start off, Ken, just to let our audience know, tell us a little bit about the Institute.
Well, as you said, we're located in Owasso, Michigan. We are a 43,000 square foot facility. We've got 2 auto labs and 3 diesel labs in our facility. I've got 4 full-time instructors and 3 adjunct instructors. Our current enrollment this next year here for 2021 we've got about 70 students enrolled, and our enrollment is going up. So
I mean, is 70 the 70 students that you have, is that the par of the amount of students that you have every year or every semester or so?
well, we haven't had our enrollment is going up. We've changed our format here a couple of years ago to a cohort format. So our students come in and stay in the same group through their curriculum, through their time here. So they're either getting a certificate program, which takes a year, or they're getting an associate program, which takes about a year and a half.
It's nice to to have a growing amount of students want to get into this particular field with an industry that's wanting technicians with such acumen. We'll get into the 3 diesel lab programs that you have at the school, but I kind of want to ask you too. Aside from the obvious trends and talents that a technician would have to complete such a job, abstractly, I guess, what does it take to train a Class A technician? What do you feel, in your experience, that a person who wants to get in this field, what type of attributes should they possess?
Well, they need to want to do it. They got to want to do it bad, because as we know, technicians are hard to find. I've been in this industry for about 33 years, and I've worked with Navistar for almost 25 years, and I've taught technicians through most of that time. And I know it's real difficult to find technicians that want to do that. They have to want to do it. They have to understand that there's investment in themselves, an investment in tools and time in order to take this career on and make it a career for the rest of their lives. So right now we work on the students when they come in. We work on them to make sure that they understand what they're getting into. They understand that if this is what they choose to do, they're going to have to invest in it. The biggest thing that I'm dealing with at the school right now is just to make sure that not only are we making sure that we're getting the students there, but we're also making sure that we've got good instructors there, that we've got current information, and that we've got good advisory guidance from our advisory board. So when we put all that together, then we know that we can provide the students with what they need.
I'm glad you had mentioned that, Ken. I want to kind of get into the moment of attracting students to the school. What are some of the things that you're doing specifically to attract those students? And can you elaborate a little bit more on the hurdles that you're running into when you're trying to attract these students to the school?
Well, we have certain criteria to come to our school, GPA requirements and stuff like that from high school. But quite frankly, and I know we're a small farm community here in the middle of Michigan, but we get 200 to 300 applicants every year, and we have to go through those applicants to make sure that they meet the criteria. And if they don't, they can take some fast track program that we have. They can take the fast track program, which we have to bring them up to speed to get their GPA up to where they can go ahead and come to school. But out here, I got to admit it, out here, we don't have too many issues getting technicians or getting students to want to be technicians. We're a farming community, so we really have a good turnout. And like I said, we've got 70 students this semester, or for this next year, but we're looking at probably 100 the year following. So we know our enrollments are going up. And like I said, I quite frankly got to admit that it's not been difficult to get students to come here, because we're one of the only of 2 universities or schools that have diesel programs in the area, and we've been very popular for that.
Ken, let's get into the diesel service labs that you were describing in the beginning. Just can you kind of give us a brief description of the curriculum in those labs, if you could?
Well, right now, of course, everybody starts off when they come here. They start off with a basic electrical. They'll do brakes, they'll do suspension, and we have to run through the students whether we got like electrical 1 and electrical 2. So obviously, we make sure those programs are back to back, to where they don't forget or do anything between the time to forget anything that they need to know to carry on for the next class. I know that as far as the curriculum goes, we cover all the basics. We make sure that they understand PMIs, they understand fluid changes, they understand that the things that they need to know if they were walking into a fleet or walking into a dealership. We make sure that those types of activities that we know they're going to be doing, whether it's changing out batteries or even mud flaps or starters or anything like that, we make sure that those are the kind of activities and those are the kind of things that we drive into the students to make sure that they can all do before they graduate. So it sounds basic, and it is basic, but when we talk to our advisors and we understand what the customers are looking for, those are the kind of things that they want to be able to do. They need to be able to change a brake chamber. And unfortunately, sometimes if they don't know how to do that, of course, obviously it makes us look bad, but it makes any school look bad if you can't do the basic functions of what the technician is going to be required to do or going to be asked to do when he walks into a dealership or into a fleet.
When you were mentioning just kind of these future technicians having the expertise of doing the job. The college that you're at is state of the art facility. It's you have the most modern tools, and I assume you are speaking to those fleets and kind of generating some mutual feedback on what's needed in the terms of training when it comes to these students. Are you having those particular conversations with trucking fleets? You're mentioning the advisory board is in communication, trying to specifically define that curriculum. I mean, is that sort of is that feedback involved in that process?
Yes, I deal with several of our advisors. Obviously, we're not having face-to-face meetings at this time, but we're going to have our first virtual meeting here in the next month or so, so we can get started back up with because we skipped the spring due to all the getting walked out of the school when we had to go on lockdown. Yeah, if it wasn't for the advisors, those guys steer us in the right direction. They're telling us what we're looking for. Just like I said, if it's a fleet, they need to know the foundational basics of a truck and everything around that truck. And then, of course, if it's a dealership, dealers often want a little bit more on the electrical side, lighting systems, things like that, more diagnostic equipment, stuff like that, and how to operate and how to use the software. So our performance classes get into that when we get to that level, when the student gets to that level.
When you're talking about the particulars that fleets are asking about, I mean, I'm pretty sure technology is a big core of that. I'm assuming that just from your answer, the things that you had mentioned, that it's very technology based. I mean, is that some of the things that the fleets are asking in a particular sense?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, a lot of the dealers go into, as I mentioned, some of the electronics, knowing how to use the laptop, knowing how to use the software. On the fleet side, we hear a lot more about the basics, some of the repetition stuff, the brakes, the brake chambers, PMIs, fluid changes, things like that, battery changes. That's what we get a lot out. Some of the feedback that we get from our fleet folks. The dealers were looking for a little bit more advanced, like I said, more of the electronic stuff, software stuff, auto transmissions, radar, things like that. They would like for us to be able to at least introduce the students to those components so they can at least identify what they are and what their functions are.
Going through the website, I see a lot of testimonials. One from Ryder Transportation, praising your school for the talent that you're bringing into the workforce, and also some former alumni as well. I'm pretty sure you've gotten a lot of feedback from those alumni. What's that experience like?
It's all been real good. We keep in touch with all of our alumni. We keep track of where they're working. I even try to get out and try to visit some of them, if they're local, to see how they're doing. But they certainly are a big part in, and we bring those alumni into any open houses that we do, things like that we do at the school that we'll do twice a year. Obviously not in person this year, but we do bring alumni in so they can speak to the upcoming students or the prospective students and give them, their thoughts on the school and what they learned and how, what the school did for them to be successful.
One of the things I know on this podcast and in previous episodes, we've talked about a lot concerning technology and of course the trucking industry, but I would be negligent, especially in this age, to not ask about how this pandemic and the coronavirus, how that has hindered things when it comes to training, or is it at all?
Well, if you can see my face right now, I'm trying to smile. The challenges we're facing have been hurdles to jump. We've got to make sure that we keep our distance, the recommended distances. We've got to make sure that the tools are cleaned between students using them. There is a lot of work involved with making sure that these students can come in and be as safe as possible. And the school we have obviously our own pandemic response team that we keep in touch with the the state government to make sure that we're following all the rules. But there are challenges involved with that because we know these students need to be close together. They have to wear masks. They have to wash. They have to wash everything that we do. All the trucks have to be wiped down. The tools have to be wiped down. It's a lot of challenge and it takes a lot of time, but we were able to do it over our summer when we learned a lot about what we needed to do for pandemic reasons or for pandemic issues. And we're starting to fall that way a little bit smarter than maybe some of the schools that didn't have the summer to learn that.
What advice could you give to other schools, or how do you think other schools could work with fleets and other companies that are needing technicians to streamline the process where they're giving feedback to the fleets are giving feedback to schools on what they need for a technician? Like what type, if there's anything that could be done to better streamline that process?
Well, I think at now, other than the pandemic and the issues and the challenges we have there, it's imperative that you keep your advisors close to your chest, that you talk with those people, and I talk to them sometimes weekly, because we have a lot of companies that come to us looking for technicians, obviously, and when we try to get those job postings and make sure the students are always aware of everything that's going on out there and who's hiring and what's going on. But I couldn't exist. We couldn't exist. We couldn't have our curriculum to where it's at, which it always needs to be improved. But it's the advice from our advisory board that helps us the most with making sure that we're providing, and I'm going to say our customers, but those fleets and those dealerships with what they need. If I try to do it by myself, or anybody were to try to do it by themselves and decide that they know exactly what everybody needs, they're going to be wrong. To let us know if I think a good track to go down is a good track. If I think something needs to be done, our advisory boards are always, or our advisors are always good to let us know that, what, that's a good idea, that's a great idea, but this is what we need. And they may steer me and have steered me down in another direction. So it's imperative that those individuals, you keep them close to you and you listen to what they say, because they're the ones that have to make sure that their customers are being satisfied.
We've been speaking with Ken Boyer, Dean of the Auto Diesel Institute and Diesel Service Program Director at Baker College. Ken, it was a pleasure having you on. Thank you for joining the program.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Thanks for asking me on.
Did you know you can ask Alexa to open Transport Topics? In just 1 minute, you will hear the biggest trucking headlines of that day. Be prepared and start your morning off right with Transport Topics.
Before we close, let's take a moment to revisit our original questions. What are training facilities doing to bring in new technicians into the workforce? And what are fleets doing to help prepare and attract that talent to join the changing workforce environment? As we've heard from our guests, it's definitely a partnership between the fleets and the training schools. Quite simply, the better the communication, the better the tech. While most schools, like the Auto Diesel Institute at Baker College, don't necessarily have a major problem attracting students, the fleets are in constant competition to recruit those students. There lies the connection. As fleets provide the best crafted partnerships with tech schools, the results will lead to a more refined diesel technician. However, as the new tech lands in the workforce, it's up to those fleets to provide incentives to recruit them and continuous training to retain that talent. If you enjoyed this episode of RoadSigns, please let others know. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. If my questions have sparked questions of your own, share them with the RoadSigns team. You can email us at share@ttnews.com or reach me on Twitter at Michael V. Freeze. We'll read them and respond daily. And of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks with more of our special report on workforce development. Until then, I'm Michael Freeze. Thank you for listening.